Welcome to Comic and Screen. I am Sam Otten, and with me is Jason Book. And in this video, we're going to be talking about 5 questions that we have about Star Wars The Force Awakens. Our first question is, what, if anything, is Star Wars The Force Awakens going to draw from the prequel movies? Do you have any thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, I would love to see them draw kind of, there's a lot of things in the background they could take from those movies. I recently watched all 3 movies, and, there's a lot of stuff that we've heard a lot about that we know, the Jar Jar and CG and stuff. But if they can take stuff from those movies, be it an alien race, be it some of the technology, or be it some of the backstory from the good or the bad side of the characters, I think that's got some potential and kind of give them a different spin as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people for months and months have been talking about what they hope does not show up from the prequels.
Yeah,
And I think largely it's going to be, they're going to be giving a lot of attention to the original trilogy
sure.
and wanting this to be like a spiritual sequel to that. But I think there's got to be some stuff that shows up. One thing that's really a question for me is Darth Plagueis. So, we got the story about Darth Plagueis in episode 3. Seems like a big deal. We've got the Sith kind of coming back around. So if Darth Plagueis figured out how to defeat death, and if Sith are arising again, his name might come up. So that's just kind of a question that I have, where he wasn't a character from the prequel trilogy, but his name was mentioned, and he's there as kind of backstory, like you're saying.
Yeah, anything to kind of deepen the myth kind of seems for what they're going for in the trailers anyway. So that I think would work quite well.
Yeah, it could be, though, they might just really focus on Vader, and they might have this cult about Vader, and so
Yes.
because of that, it might be much more about Vader instead of going back to Darth Plagueis, but
Yeah.
that's, something we can look for. All right, next question we have is about the actors. So how is this new set of actors going to come across? And I'm really curious about John Boyega and Daisy Ridley as kind of the leads. Are they going to have the personality and the charisma that the original trilogy had? And then with the original trilogy, I'm really wondering about Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher. Am I going to be able to see them as their characters, or are they going to seem like these old actors who we've known for decades now that are just stuck in this movie? So that's a question for me.
Yeah, I mean, with the original cast, they had the camaraderie. So for the new cast, that's the hugest thing for me. It's not how good they are on their own, it's how good they interact and how we root for them as heroes in the movie. Because I'm not through 4, 5, and 6 yet in my movie watching of all 6 episodes before the new movie. But when you get to those points with them in episode 4, it's instant. Like after they have a few fights and things, by the end of the movie, it's like they've known each other for a long time. So that's really important for these new characters, I would say, for the new trilogy. Now, as far as the old actors kind of seeming not like, who they are in real life, to me, the only one that runs that risk is Harrison Ford, because he's been in so many other movies since. Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher haven't been in a lot of things since. I think it'll be a little more believable for me to see them as original characters, as long as they've still got their acting chops up to par.
Right. Yeah, I think you're definitely right on about the chemistry between the characters. And that was a big thing that separates the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. Prequel trilogy, it was hard to find those sparks.
Yeah.
People didn't have a lot to play off each other, and when they tried to manufacture it, it didn't really work. But the original trilogy, there definitely were those dynamics.
That's right.
So hopefully we can see that. Definitely look for that in this one, and then the chemistry between like Harrison Ford and John Boyega or Daisy Ridley, that kind of stuff too.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Next question. What storytelling devices might this movie use? So Star Wars has some kind of classic stuff, but usually it's kind of a straightforward, adventure story where we're following the characters and they're going forward. They have this problem to solve, and we get the wipes and stuff in terms of transitions. But storytelling devices, is there going to be narration used? Are there going to be flashbacks? Now that we're in the future and there's this gap of time, are they going to flash back to fill in that time? Are they going to flash back to the original trilogy or to the prequels? I doubt it, but will they use any of those devices?
Yeah, that's really interesting to me, because the reason that made me think of this question was the trailer for episode 3, when it came out, used the scene and dialogue, mostly the dialogue of Alec Guinness talking about the Clone Wars and then showing it, or it might have been for episode 2, but it was really interesting because it was mixing something from the old trilogy that was actual footage or sound with stuff from the prequel trilogy. So it made me think there's no reason they couldn't be telling about this myth of the Jedi and the Sith when actually either using clips or audio from the old movie and kind of making it like a flashback, right, within the movie, especially to fill in that 30-year time gap. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then as far as narration goes, the trailer has kind of made it seem that Rey has a lot going on in the beginning and seems very central. I wouldn't be, I can't see them doing it for sure because it kind of doesn't do, they haven't used it in Star Wars before, but I think it would work really well for a character like her or for a character, for any of them to kind of talk about the history of what they've heard about the Force and the myth kind of to open the movie too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some possibilities there. It would be kind of new terrain for a Star Wars movie to use that kind of stuff, but it could work. It might be a little jarring, or it almost might be a little too on the nose to have flashbacks literally to old original footage.
True.
But I think maybe there could be flashbacks to some intermediate time since Return of the Jedi, up to now.
There you go. That's a good idea.
I also wonder about Force ghosts. So, I mean, that's also kind of a storytelling device where you can bring this Force ghost in for something.
Totally. Especially one we haven't seen before, right? Like Qui-Gon or something weird. I doubt that's going to happen, but that would be very interesting.
Right. Or a Sith ghost,
There you go.
So,
yeah.
All right. Star Wars has this tradition of environmentally based planets. So we've had, the ice planet of Hoth. We've had, sand planets. We've had the lava, volcano type planets. So question would be, is there going to be a new environmental planet? And then what environment, might be left to have a planet based around?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one, and it's kind of like when you think of Earth elements, they've done them all, right? Like fire, water, air, earth. So what's really left? I would love to see them come up with something totally off the wall for, a scene as long as it worked. And I think it would just kind of be like one of those things where you'd set the bar high for yourself, and if they could pull it off, it would be pretty amazing. So I don't know what's left to do, like a mushy planet or something. But,
gelatinous.
Yeah, like something just really interesting, kind of to further that tradition of Star Wars, like really just kind of blowing you away visually, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like they do need to have some new environment that's really striking and does continue that tradition. And then there is like the sand scenes that we've seen, but my understanding is that those are not Tatooine, that it's actually a different kind of sand, or a planet that maybe has at least part of it is a desert base.
Yeah, that's right. And I just thought of one while you were talking about your response there. We haven't seen a planet that's underground. We've seen Cloud City, so maybe they'll do something that's like way underground, like near a planet's core. Maybe?
Yeah, right. Because in like episode 3, I guess there was the caves and stuff where they were built in, and Obi-Wan had to go there and confront General Grievous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't deep underground. It was just kind of like cave based or rock based.
Yeah.
But it didn't really have that feeling of like, oh yeah, it's completely a civilization that's at the core of the planet or something like that.
Yeah, that might be an idea, anyways.
Right. I do think Star Wars, rightly gets teased for like, not every planet is one ecosystem, the same type of environment. So
hey, there's an idea right there. Maybe they'll go to the warm spot on Hoth and there'll be water or something.
Yeah, all right. So our last question is, which is more likely, Lando Calrissian showing up in the movie, or J.J. Abrams going past with more than 100 lens flares?
Oh, jeez.
What would you say on that?
Well, as I was saying before we recorded, in that trailer when the Falcon is flying through that planet getting chased by TIE fighters, that's in the bright sunlight, so that's got the potential for a lot of lens flares right there. I'm hoping he holds off on it, and really the fanboy in me, the more I think about it, the only character that doesn't seem like they have any possibility of showing up, and we haven't heard anything about, is Billy D. Williams as Lando. And I don't see why. Like, I'm pretty sure they could come with a really cool kind of cameo scene for him, something to do with the ship maybe, that would just have us all like, oh, that is awesome. I can't believe they did that. So I'm really holding out hope for that. As far as the chances go, it is Abrams. So what do you think?
I think there's probably going to be more than 100 lens flares. I think he'll have less than in Star Trek or less than in some of his other movies, but I think he can't help himself. And yeah, if you have a scene where they're kind of flashing quite a bit, it can really add up quickly. With Lando, I mean, he was right there with them celebrating at the end of Return of the Jedi, so it seems like he's now part of the team.
Yeah.
And the Millennium Falcon is here, and he
That's
always,
right.
he has this connection to it. So I think that
Yeah.
would be the way to bring him in. Would be like you said, something with the Falcon.
And
Um,
technically, in the end of Jedi, he was the last person to fly it.
right.
You know.
Exactly.
And one quick aside, I forgot about the lens flares. If we see lens flares off lightsaber fights, that's going to be ridiculous. I really hope we don't see that.
I'm pretty sure he's going to dial it way down
Yeah,
because I'm
that's good.
sure he's heard the criticism of it, and it gets crazy at times.
No doubt. Yeah.
But he still seems like he can't help himself. He thinks it brings some excitement or something. But I can see where you're going with Lando. I worry if they start to have too many of those things that it's almost like it's making the movie like a bag of nostalgia instead of making it its own movie. So
Yeah.
I think they're walking a little bit of a fine line on there, but I think Lando is one that like he could make sense. So
Yeah, I mean, especially if it was something small. I mean, if they made him Finn's
yeah.
dad, I'd be like, okay, that's kind of ridiculous. That sounds like a Family Guy joke more than an actual scene in the
Right,
movie.
right. Yeah. Great. Well, we're definitely looking forward to it. We'll probably have a lot more questions after we see it. So thanks for talking about it with me.
Oh, anytime, my pleasure.